This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Lady Amanda.
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Ezra the Watchful.
And I am Sir Matt the Bud Knight. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we are into chapter 38, Tyrion 5 in A Game of Thrones. And in A World of Ice and Fire, we are discussing the Stormlands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel a little unbalanced already.
I do too. You know, we're making some changes here on the show, and everyone's
Big changes.
Big changes.
Oh my goodness.
No,
man.
guys, we're just messing. We're just messing with you. We just wanted to switch things around a bit today, just because everyone was freaking out about our new format. So
Yeah. But we're here. We're ready to go. This is gonna. We've got a lot of stuff. Actually, this is. I say a lot of stuff, but I mean, after this week, we really are gonna have a lot of stuff in these episodes.
Yeah.
You
Fire
know?
and Blood comes out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm getting my copy. I'm gonna be doing the ebook and the Kindle, and then I'll get the physical copy later. So, Ezra, are you which versions are you getting?
I've got to get the physical. You know, I've got. Well, they have an audiobook. Oh, I'm gonna be lost.
There's an audiobook.
Without an audiobook.
Yeah, I believe there's an.
Is there?
audiobook,
Okay. Yeah, it's
I don't
good.
know who's. I don't know. Let me pull it up. I don't know who's reading it if we know yet.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, I wonder who will be reading that. But yeah, I'm gonna go get the physical copy, and you know, I didn't pre-order it. You know, which is
you don't need to. Well, I'm getting the Kindle version, so I don't need to.
Yeah, but we did actually contact the publishers and try to get a copy ahead of time, but you know, they wouldn't hear us. So I mean, they did. They actually replied and were really nice, but it's definitely something they were keeping hardcore under wraps.
It is narrated by Simon Vance. I don't know who that is.
Simon Vance, huh?
Simon Vance, has done. He did Dune. He did Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. All those things. He did a Tale of Two Cities. Looks like he's done quite a bit.
Okay, I didn't recognize him as a Game of Thrones person, so yeah, I didn't.
Well, I mean, he's done a lot of audiobooks here. 698 audiobooks. So I feel like we're in good hands here.
Okay, that's good. Maybe he'll get the pronunciations right. That's what we want.
Yeah. I'm looking. A lot of big stuff. You know. So yeah. So cool. He's done
awesome.
Robinson Crusoe and all those things. So anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to the audiobook. And I guess speaking here of Fire and Blood, we posted something in the Facebook group yesterday, although today as we're recording, and that brings us to trivia. Last week the question was who is the captain of the Iron Victory? And that is Victorian Greyjoy, and the winner was Michael Puckett.
There we go.
One trivia. Lord Adam Parker messaged me to inform me that he didn't feel like it would have been safe for him to pull over in traffic and and do trivia. So he said, he messaged me later. But which brings us to trivia for this week.
Yeah.
Who was Aegon the Conqueror's Hand of the King? So this week we're going to be doing it a little bit different. We've made a post in the Facebook group. All you have to do is go into the Facebook group and leave a comment. And I'm sure the answer will most likely already be there because somebody's going to get it right. But this week is not about who answers first. It is simply all you have to do is go in and leave a comment with your answer, and we will take all those names, put them in a hat, draw out of there, and then we are going to send somebody who enters a copy of Fire and Blood in your preferred, your preferred format. So I guess we could give you an Audible credit if you want. I have to figure out how to do that. But more than likely, we're sending you a physical copy. But can explore other options, I suppose. So
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah. So all right, man. Well, yeah, we got a little bit of news to get through here, Sir Ezra, today.
We do.
You said you had something first, so I'll let you start.
Well, I basically just wanted. I mean, are we going to go over what we're thankful for? Are we going to talk about that?
Yeah, we could talk about that. Yeah, go right ahead.
I mean, because we are leading into this is you'll have this episode for our American listeners. It's going to be Thanksgiving, so
Right, and
we thought,
and for our non-American listeners, that is the holiday we celebrate of when the first men came over and took all the land from the children of the forest.
That's
That's
a terrible holiday.
Yeah, that's what that is about. So
we're so thankful for it, though.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, no. And I thought we'd list a couple things that we are thankful for. Number one, I'm thankful for Aegon the Conqueror. You know, like without him, I mean, we wouldn't even have Fire and Blood tomorrow.
It's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm thankful for Dan and Dave for turning the HBO series, making the HBO series happen. It's really great.
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
Let's keep going here. Back to you, Sir Ezra.
Let's see. Well, I'm thankful for all of the tavern wenches. In all of Westeros, they serve the kingdom well. I think very thankful for them and their service. So they made the realm a better place.
Yeah.
So.
I guess I'm thankful for Lord Varys, because somebody's got to keep the realm going. Okay, someone has to serve the realm, not just themselves, but serve the realm.
Wow. Well, if we're on the topic of service, I'd like to thank then the Silent Sisters for being silent.
Yeah. Wow.
Remaining silent.
Wow.
Totally. I mean, they are. I mean, it's like.
Hey.
Oh man, why did we start this, and why did we go unscripted?
Yeah, no, what we're ultimately thankful for is, of course, the mass number of ravens we get and our listeners. Obviously, yeah.
No kidding.
This show would not exist without you. So we are most thankful for you. And this brings me to actually one of our listeners. I just want to, this weekend, Thanksgiving's coming up, and watching some football and stuff, and now that I live out here in the Pacific Northwest, everyone's talking about getting ready. Oh, who's going to be in the Rose Bowl, right? College football,
right? Yeah.
Looks like it's probably going to be Washington State, and one of our listeners, Sir Gibbs, he's a big Washington State guy.
Yeah,
and
he is.
I'm thinking that the way it's going to all shake out is they may end up playing Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. So, just putting you on notice there, buddy. Yeah. So,
I mean, it could be a great divide in the kingdom.
Could be. Yeah. So, anyway, all right. Well, let's go ahead and some news, some other news. Man, a lot of news this week.
Yeah.
Not just Fire and Blood, but it was announced that the show will be coming back in April.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah. So at least now we know. It's exciting now. Let the rewatch begin. So Sir Ezra and I are going to figure that out shortly. We also have we have our second part of our Duncan Egg series on Patreon coming soon. I've already started working on the doc and getting that ready to go. Yep. And Raven's Nest is also coming very soon. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we want to post a date for that so we can kind of get everybody set up on the weekends and possibly join in on Discord. Maybe later this week, we have some time for Thanksgiving. We might hop into the live recording and see if we can kind of simulate that.
Do a little test run on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. What do you think? Because I think we're going to do an initial, real initial, coverage of Fire and Blood.
Right.
Once we skim it. So.
Right. Yeah. We'll probably. Since we both have work off Thursday. Probably. I'm thinking Thursday. Just kind of a quick. I don't know how long that'll be, but just kind of a quick. Like, wow. Here are my thoughts on Fire and Blood so far. So.
Yeah, just initial thoughts after a day's read.
Yeah,
I'll probably have it finished, but no.
yeah, probably. I'll be into it. I don't. It's probably gonna be like 40 hours.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's gonna be. That's what I was wondering.
Right.
If it's the size of a World of Ice and Fire,
I think
it's gonna be.
I think it's the size of Game of Thrones.
Okay, so it's gonna anywhere from a 35-hour to 40-hour.
Right.
I'll
have it done. I'll have it done. I'll have it done by next week. So
yeah.
So all right. So we have that and some Gur Watch here.
Yeah, I was hoping you were gonna bring this up.
Yeah, I've seen a few things on the internet that Gur is like going up to some cabin in the woods and he's like, I'm just locking himself away so he can start finishing Winds of Winter. So
yeah, I think he's calling it Crasher's Keep.
Mm-hmm.
He's up there just really getting in getting in the headspace, to finish it up.
Yeah. And on his Nada blog, actually it's really interesting here. Obviously this week we lost a very important person in the kind of, sci-fi fan, just in any written thing at all, and that's Stan Lee. And so Gur wrote a huge article here on his Nada blog called Farewell to a Marvel.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really cool. And he had I guess he had written him when he was like younger, and they have like communicated and stuff like that. And he talks about he was a big Fantastic Four fan. As I think seemed like one of his kind of inspirations in comics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's a really kind of cool read, and Gur just talking about a great guy. So yeah, he said, dear Stan, you did great work. As long as the people still read comic books and believe in heroes, your characters will be remembered. Thank you so much. So
wow,
yeah,
that's awesome. Yep.
Okay, all right, Sir Ezra, I believe we are gonna. Yep. Is there anything else before we move on over to the Stormlands?
No, I think the bit that I had saved here, I'll save right for the reread. Put it right in there, so we'll talk. I got a little something special I found. Just wanted to talk about one of the characters that's coming up. So let's jump into the Maester's study. I think this week we're talking about the Stormlands.
Yeah.
So,
all right. The Stormlands. The storms that blow up the Narrow Sea are infamous throughout the Seven Kingdoms and in the 9 free cities as well. Though they may arise in any season, seafarers say that the worst of them come each autumn, following the warm waters of the summer sea, south of the steppe zones, then roaring north across those bleak and stony islands. More than half continue north by northwest, according to the archives at the Citadel, sweeping over Cape Wrath and the Rainwood, gathering strength as they cross the waters of Shipbreaker's Bay before slamming into Storm's End on Durin's Point. It is from these great gales that the Stormlands take their name.
Yeah. Can I just say real quick that this is so stupid, but the Rainwood, and Cape Wrath, never had thought, about like just the naming, the nature of the name. In those, which is that's kind of neat, right?
Yeah, and so when we look over the Stormlands here, you've got like some things here. Summerhall is in the Stormlands,
yes.
Obviously Storm's End, the Great Island of Tarth. It says here with its waterfalls and lakes and soaring mountains is considered part of the Stormlands as well, as are the Eastermont and myriad lesser isles found up Cape Wrath and Weeping Town. Ashford is technically in the Stormlands, so.
Oh, is it really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty. It actually is very small, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah, it's really not that big, actually.
Yeah, not a very
probably
large,
actually, with the exception of the Iron Islands, is probably the smallest region.
That's what I was thinking.
In Westeros.
Yeah. And also, if you get a chance to look on the map there, friends, it's King's Landing is literally right there to the north of it, with Blackwater Bay, so very close to King's Landing. And another interesting keep that we want to bring up is Griffin's Roost. because that's as we've talked in a lot of our previous Fallout Fridays and different shows. That's an important point in A Dance of Dragons. That's something that's we're talking about young Aegon, young Griff,
Right.
John Connington showing up there at the Roost, and so that's an important keep. Good friend of old Rhaegar Targaryen. So
Right. Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So a little bit about the ancient seat, which was actually not the Baratheons. We'll get to them, and if you remember our talk about Aegon's conquest, it was House Durandon. Is it Durandon or Durand?
I say Durandon.
Durandon. That's how.
Durandon.
Yeah. So much of the early history of Westeros is lost in the mist of time, where it becomes ever more difficult to separate fact from legend the further back one goes. This is particularly true of the Stormlands, where the first men were comparatively few and the elder races strong. Elsewhere in the Seven Kingdoms, the runes that tell their stories survive to this day, chiseled into cave walls and standing stones and the ruins of fallen strongholds. But the Stormlands, oft as not, the first men carved the tales of their victories and defeats into the trunks of trees long since rotted away. Moreover, a tradition developed amongst the Storm Kings of old for naming the king's firstborn son and heir after Durin Godsgrief, founder of their line, further compounding the difficulties of the historian. The bewildering number of King Durandons has inevitably caused much confusion. The maesters of the Citadel of Old Town have given their numbers to many of these monarchs in order to distinguish one from another, but that was not the practice of the singers, who are our chief source for these times. The legends surrounding the founder of the house, Durandon Godsgrief, all come to us through the singers. The songs tell us that Durin won the heart of Elenai, daughter of the sea god and the goddess of the wind, by yielding to a mortal's love. Elenai doomed herself to a mortal's death, and for this the gods who had given her birth hated the man she had taken for her lord husband. In their wrath, they set howling winds and lashing rains to knock down every castle Durin dared to build, until a young boy helped him erect one so strong and cunningly made that it could defy their gales. The boy grew to be Brandon the Builder. Durin became the first Storm King, with Elenai at his side. He lived and reigned at Storm's End for 1,000 years, or so the stories claim.
Yep, they're all living for 1,000 years, aren't they, around that time?
So there may be somebody else we see in this Age of Heroes. Bran the Builder. Last week we talked about Garth Greenhand. Now we have, Durin Godsgrief. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Well, yeah, for sure. That is this, as you say. That's another player. Possibly the building of this keep, would be. Interesting to see. I've always wanted to kind of get like a better. I was looking through A World of Ice and Fire for like a good picture of it, because I wonder what is it in the build that's any different from the first several builds that would make it withstand the storms.
Right?
Are there just like is there something that when it floods or when the sea rises, or what is it that keeps it from? Is it magic? What keeps Storm's End? Up,
well, we know that Melisandre can't send magic into Storm's End, right? She has to kind of like go in. She can't just send it through the walls, because we know that there's magic used in it. And also, it's interesting that Bran the Builder helps build this, and what makes Storm's End so powerful and difficult to siege, like almost impossible to siege. We know Aegon the Conqueror even would have had a hard time sieging it, in their wars there, because you have this keep, and then you have this enormous wall, like huge, thick wall that goes around it almost in like a circle, right? So it's really more of like it's less than a crescent, so it's almost like a U-shaped thing, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't shoot arrows into it. They said like siege weapons wouldn't work against it. So you just have one entry point into this kind of, to get at that gate. So
yeah, I mean, here's a quick little. So Storm's End is surrounded by a massive outer curtain wall, 100 feet high and 40 feet thick on its thinnest side. Wow. and nearly 80 feet thick on its seaward side. So there you go. I mean, it's when you talk about the make of that keep, that's impressive. That's
Right.
a lot of stone, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, interesting there. I'm going to move over here to, and we've talked a little bit about this before. It was House Baratheon began because the Aegon's hand of the king, who will leave nameless, since that's the trivia question. Slew
Argilac.
Argilac.
The arrogant. Mm-hmm.
Argilac the arrogant in single combat, and so then he took his daughter as wife, and that began House Baratheon. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have here we have something right here. House Baratheon was born amidst the rain and mud of the battle known in history as the Last Storm, when blank thrice turned back the charge of the Knights of Storm's End and slew their king Argilac the Arrogant in single combat. Storm's End, long thought to be impregnable, yielded to our trivia question answer without a battle. Afterward, he took King Argilac's daughter to wife and adopted the Durrandon arms, which is something cool, right? Is that I don't think that there was a Baratheon arms before that, and they took this one kind of as like an homage. And words as his own to honor Argilac's valor. So the arms of House Baratheon obviously is a stag on a kind of golden field. And so some of the houses in the Stormlands, you have Buckler, Caron, Connington, Durrandon, or Dondarrion, Eastermont, Penrose, Seaworth, Selmy, Stedmon, Swan, and Tarth. So those are definitely a lot of players. When you think about that proximity to King's Landing, a lot of these names, we've heard. Caron, or Caron, as we hear a lot. Connington, obviously John Connington. Dondarrion, Beric Dondarrion.
Yeah.
Eastermont, Penrose, Davos, Seaworth. And that's one that gets created right after Davos helps Stannis, right? The Onion Knight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
House Selmy, Stedman, Swan, and Tarth, and like the Tarths. So
Selmy's from there, huh? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Nice. Huh. Well, that's interesting. All right. What do we got next here? So we got the houses.
Right. Yeah. So the houses. We could go into we'd have to go into the Baratheon house history, but I think we could just kind of keep it kind of short and sweet this week and talk a little bit more about the history of Storm's End, because I think that's kind of, because a lot of the Baratheon house history we know. Somebody we've talked about in our last Dunk and Egg series on Patreon, which is kind of cool. You have the Laughing Storm, Lionel Baratheon, right?
Yes.
So that's and we talked about this in World of Ice and Fire. That's a little bit before, Steffon Baratheon, who was Robert's dad. Lionel Baratheon fights with Sir Duncan the Tall, and then has to fight Sir Duncan the Tall later, right? When Aegon the Fifth, Egg, his son decides to marry for love instead of marrying his that daughter, and so
his betrothed,
his betrothed, and so it's just kind of cool. So the Laughing Storm, Lionel Baratheon, who I think would be Robert's grandfather, super cool. He's a lot of fun to read about in the Dunk and Egg series. But so let's talk a little bit more about Storm's End here, because I think it's pretty cool here. Storm's End is surely an old castle, but when compared to the ruined ring forts of the First Men, or even the first keep of Winterfell, the great tower and perfectly joined stones of Storm's End, curtain walls seem much beyond what the First Men were capable of for many thousands of years. The great effort involved in raising the wall was one thing, but that was more a brute effort than the high art needed to make a wall where even the wind cannot find purchase. Archmaester Varen, in his Triumphs and Defeats, speculates that the tales claim that the final form of Storm's End was the seventh castle, shows a clear Andal influence. If true, this suggests that the possibility that the final form of the castle was only achieved in Andal times. Mayhaps the castle was rebuilt on the site of earlier castles, but if so, it was long after Durin God's grief and his fair Elenai had passed away from this earth.
Yeah. Wow.
I think the Maesters are wrong. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I'm pretty sure.
Go ahead and say it.
Bran the Builder built the freaking wall. Okay, I'm pretty sure this castle's no. You know, this is like, and he was a child, so no pun intended, but child's play.
Right. Yeah. I mean, don't take away from his accomplishments here. I mean, it's
still super. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they really all of this is kind of muddled when they talk about whether when did he build this keep in relationship to when did the Andals arrive versus when the first men arrived. It's all kind of up in the air. We don't exactly know, but I would say Bran the Builder had, a hand in it, or one of the. Maybe there's a, maybe there's this clan of builders,
right,
that's associated with Bran, So,
I mean, and right here, this is pretty cool too. It says Storm's End has never fallen to storm or siege. The histories tell us, it can be believed. During Robert's rebellion, Lord Tyrell of Highgarden laid siege to Storm's End for a year without result. If the garrison's supplies had been sufficient to the task, the castle might have held out indefinitely. But the war had come quickly, and the storehouses and granaries were only half full. By year's end, the garrison under Lord Robert's brother Stannis was sorely tested by hunger and want, only to be saved by a common smuggler who slipped through the red wine blockade one night carrying a load of onions and salt fish to Storm's End. Thus, the castle was able to stand unbroken until Robert defeated Rhaegar on the Trident and Lord Eddard Stark arrived to end the siege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's pretty awesome. The Onion Knight, just saving the day.
Yeah. So, yeah, super cool. The Stormlands actually is also probably, I think it's like, it seems like the shortest chapter of the of these. So, not really a whole lot. Not really a whole lot here that we also just haven't covered a handful of times. So, next week we have Dorne.
Right.
Which
next week we have Dorne.
Is going to be quite cool. So,
real quick, I just want to kind of throw this out, little challenge to the group. It's often, I think I've said in previous episodes, like, who is in charge at Storm's End? At the end of this series and where we're at, like, who's left in its defense. In A Feast of Crows, I couldn't remember when this was exactly, but I just looked this bit up where Mace Tyrell and his host go to besiege Storm's End. So we're actually back in that same situation you just talked about with the Onion Knight, and it is besieged. Now, it does list off defenders, and so I think we've got some people who are there defending it, but I don't know if are they defending that in Stannis' name. Is that just they're trying to stake their own claim? House Florent kind of betrayed Stannis a little bit in that they, were saying that he was going to bend the knee to Joffrey back. In there for a bit, but I don't know. I just kind of thought, isn't that interesting? We don't really know, what's going on there. And when Mace leaves, you've now got the Golden Company, who are making a play at the end of A Dance of Dragons, to head to Storm's End. So, just want to give everybody kind of a quick little rundown of what's going on at Storm's End, because we really lose track of it. I mean, we really. Not a lot is known as to what's going on there, So
right.
I think
absolutely,
they do. It does say that its defenders include Gilbert Elwood and Stannis' uncle Sir Lomas Estermont. So from that island, we mentioned a couple islands right off of the coast there, Tarth being one of them. Sounds like they're there, kind of defending, this keep. So. And what's crazy, what's ironic too, is that the Tyrells were, had allied themselves with Renly Baratheon.
I know.
So, just wild. Anyways, I just thought something to discuss, something to talk about. So, okay, that's all I got there.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and head on over to the reread. Sirs, you have a little note here. Do you want to read this first, or Okay.
I'll go ahead and start with this. I mean, this is so basically, oftentimes I've talked about how characters develop and kind of how Gur in his writing. It was one of the things that worried me back when I several years ago, and I would talk to people about how this series is going to come to an end, and I used to say there's too many threads. There's just too much. It's ever evolving. It's massive, littered with details, and you can kind of see that here. I don't know where Gur was. It was asked about Bronn and his development, and at what point did Gur know? Because we're talking about Bronn will be part of today's discussion, but he says I did know in 1991 how Bronn. I did not know how Bronn was going to happen, or what was going to happen to him. I'm sorry, that was the question. Did you know what was going to happen to him? And he says, no, I didn't even know there'd be a guy named Bronn. I was inventing him along the way when I was writing, and he just kind of says here, okay, Tyrion gets kidnapped. Let's see. There's a couple sellswords there. Their names are Fred and Bronn. It was actually Bronn and Chiggin, and then one of them dies. I flipped a coin. Okay, who dies? Chiggin dies because his name is stupid. Bronn's a better name, so I keep Bronn. And then Bronn became, quite an interesting character, and plenty of these characters take on minds of their own. So they push to the front, and you think of a cool line, and you give it to Bronn because he's trying to talk, and now Bronn is somebody who says something cool. That's how characters grow on you. So a lot of minor characters, I'm still discovering along the way. And I just wanted to mention that because, he does start with the name oftentimes. And for some of the major characters, the minor characters, maybe sometimes. And I read somewhere on a Reddit where someone was talking about the name Bronn and being like brawny, and strong. Right. And that being something that Tyrion is lacking. So Bronn is his, he makes up for what Tyrion doesn't have, So just kind of a cool thing. I'd always talked about, I've always listened to him and read about how how these characters take shape in his mind, and I just think it's fascinating. So I wanted to kind of share it as we dive in to this chapter.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, last week we were in Bran 5. Bran was riding outside Winterfell. He had learned of Jaime Lannister's attack on his dad. Robb had ran off to kind of find the direwolves, and Bran was attacked by 6 outlaws. Robb returned with the direwolves to defeat all of them but one, and then Theon had kills that guy with an arrow, and then Osha ends up surviving and is taken captive. This week we're in Tyrion 5, but the last time we were with Tyrion, Tyrion had found himself being taken to the Eyrie instead of Winterfell, which will fool many of anyone who attempts to rescue him. His attempt to convince Lady Catelyn of his innocence was interrupted when the Vale Mountain clans attack. During the fight, Tyrion saves Catelyn, and afterwards he explains that Littlefinger's accusations has a hole. Tyrion would never bet against his family. This week, we are in Tyrion 5. Tyrion is held captive in one of the Erie's sky cells. Eventually, he bribes the jailer to take a message that he is ready to confess. When brought to the High Hall, Tyrion manages to convince Lady Lysa Arryn to give him a trial by combat, and the sellsword Bronn declares he will be Tyrion's champion.
Yeah. This is a fun chapter, and this one really is also very much like what we see in the HBO show.
Right. So, yeah. I just rewatched that scene, and it's great both ways. It goes down pretty much the same. Tyrion's conversation with Maud's a little different, but other than that, it's pretty much the same scene. So.
Yep. All right, so you've got this broken down into halves here, I think.
So we're gonna split it up into 2 parts here. We have the Sky Cell and a trial by combat. So let's go ahead and start with the way this chapter opens. You want eat Mord at is it Maud or Mord? It's kind
I
of
say Mord.
Mord. Okay, yeah. I think in the show it seems always saying Maud, like MAUD.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. But he has a plate of boiled beans in one thick, stub-fingered hand. Tyrion was starved, but he refused to let this brute see him cringe. A leg of lamb would be present. He said from the heap of soiled straw in the corner of his cell, perhaps a dish of peas and onions, some fresh-baked bread with butter, and a flagon of mulled wine to wash it down, or beer if that's easier. I try not to be over particular. It's beans, Mord said. Here, and he held out the plate. It's just funny, you know, and then he and Mord are there kind of go back and forth, and you know, Mord kind of kicks him a couple times, and Tyrion realizes he's gonna have to kind of you know, persuade this guy some other way.
Yeah, he's holding the beans above his head, you know, trying to make him jump because he thinks it's funny. He's kind of a simpleton, you know. He's
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, definitely that axe he took to the side of the head that took his ear and half his cheek really, you know, messed him up. Maybe he was messed up beforehand, but I'm gonna
right.
You know, he's definitely not clicking. Well, another thing that's interesting is we did this probably months ago. We were talking about food, and we were talking about the references to food and Gur's obsession with food. I mean, even right here, just like, I think it's what really brings the world to life. You know, Tyrion's thinking about all the different flavors and foods he wants, and he just goes kind of nuts with like his request, which is awesome. You know, because he's just such a sarcastic little, you know, he's a piece of work for sure. So that's kind of neat, you know. And then the beans get, you know, scattered on the floor, but. I don't know, just a neat little exchange. So he's in this sky cell, man, and you have a great picture here. Did you get this from a World of Ice and Fire? This picture?
No, this is from the wiki, so I think somebody just drew this. Yeah,
that's awesome. It's just a picture of the slanted kind of floor, you know, looking out into the blue, you know,
into the veil. Yeah. It's just something, so it's super cool, and the show does a great job of showing it too. You know, just that kind of, you know, I mean, how many people die? I mean, when in the show, right, Tyrion is waking up and he's almost like, you know, rolled off of the sky cell out into, you know, just died, right? So,
right,
and they say that eventually it'll break them, right? Like people probably just jump, right, or try to climb down, or you know, that's what they think is the other option.
The answer.
Yeah, so they don't you know, they don't really, that's why they say they have no Liza Aaron says, you know, later, we don't have an executioner here. We have the moon door, right? And we'll get to that, but yeah, they just throw people off mountains.
Right. Yeah.
So how many skeletons are down at the bottom of this mountain? Or, you know, down just below?
Yeah, I don't know. And does somebody get hit down in the Vale? Like, I mean, you know, is there a village down below?
Like, just gets like pelted with like dead people.
I'm just concerned, you know, like, are we gonna? I mean, because the way they make it look, it's like it's a straight down. Like the moon door is. It's not like you're landing on the side of the mountain there. It's like it's going down into this valley, which I think is funny.
But like they have like, you know, wenches that lift stuff up. So are you just falling down on like the wenches that are coming up, or how's that work?
Yeah, I don't know. They're probably on different sides of the keep, but it's also like, where is this all?
Where's it all going? Yeah.
And I wonder too, like they do have the option of, if you're a good climber, I wonder if you could find a foothold, you know, on the outside here, just like they climb up the wall, the wall. You know,
I'm sure somebody has. I'm sure somebody has.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe there's you know, a good cell, because he could have crawled over to somebody else's cell too.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe conspired with somebody else if that's possible, but
in the show it looks like it would actually be kind of possible. You get that side angle. Like, I mean, you know, you'd have to be a good climber, I'm sure, you know, like,
right.
I mean, it's not like smooth rock. I mean, it's, you know, it's clearly been weathered over the centuries and stuff, so I'm sure there's definitely probably some finger holes and stuff like that for if you're that kind of a climber.
Yeah. So, anyways, he kind of he notices too, as you had said, that kind of the idea that someone had written "God save me" or "God's save me" had been written on the wall there behind him. It looked like it was in blood, possibly, and it says, "The blue is calling."
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah, it says here it was probably 600 feet below. There was nothing but empty air.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's probably yeah.
So, anyways, so he's in here for a bit, and Mord kind of, you know, goes back and forth with him, you know, leaves, and that's where Tyrion starts to think he's got to be, what does he have in his arsenal? Actually, he starts to think back about, the words that he had said, what got him into this cell. You know what I mean? So we get a little bit of a recap as to, like his conversation with Lysa, right? And he sort of says it's his mouth that got him in here. His mouth can get him out, because he was just, running his mouth, and so, which is why we love him, but it's also,
right,
gets him in some trouble.
Right, and so Tyrion kind of goes, he remembers, right? So some of the rest of the scene, we get Tyrion remembering stuff. He says the wretched boy had started it. He's thinking of the wretched boy had started it, looking down on him from a throne of carved weirwood, which is cool. That's something else that's cool about this castle is that they don't have like a throne. There's like a weirwood tree, right, that they carved into like a chair. Beneath the moon and falcon banners of House Aaron, Tyrion Lannister had been looked down on all his life, but seldom from a rheumy-eyed 6-year-old who needs to stuff fat cushions under their cheeks to lift them to the height of a man. Is he the bad man? The boy asked, clutching his doll. He is, the lady Lysa had said from a lesser throne beside him. She was all in blue, powdered, and perfumed for all the suitors who filled her court. Yeah.
Yep, and this is where she accuses him, and she says, I love his line. She says, he slew the hand of the king. And Tyrion says, oh, did I kill him too?
Yeah, and that line later and says, but Tyrion's Tyrion's mood had been too foul for sense. To his shame, he had been faltered during the last leg of their day-long climb up to the Eyrie, his stunted legs unable to make him any higher. Bronn had carried him the rest of the way. But then it just goes on to say here, it would seem I've been a busy little fellow, he said with sarcasm. I wonder when I found all the time to do this slaying and murdering. Right?
Yeah, really. It's just mocking. Yeah, totally mocking him. Like,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Which definitely gets to him. I think it gets to Catelyn more. I mean, because she's got some reasoning skills, and is looking at this more. The more and more she thinks about it, it's sort of like, yeah, this might not have been the Lannister, the easiest one to take, and it was opportunistic, right? But the more he talks to her, it's sort of like, yeah, I don't know that he really did have anything to do with all of this. So
yeah, and so this is right, and so this is interesting too. Is he says you can't hurt us. No one can hurt us here. Tell him, mother. And she says the Eyrie is impregnable, and Tyrion says, not impregnable, he said, merely inconvenient. Which I find interesting, yeah, so. Right.
Though he does, he kind of thinks to his climb, though, and he's like, boy, he's just kind of sticking it to her a little bit, because he thinks, though, with men in armor, trying to come up the way that he came up, like,
right, it would
and
not
getting
happen,
fought.
Right.
Yeah, it would be really hard.
Well, we know that you can get up there really easy with a dragon, so.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Or perhaps an ice dragon, so, we'll see. Yeah, and so.
So Robert wants him to fly. He says,
yeah.
I want him to fly, and that's where Catelyn kind of has to remind them, this is my prisoner, so I will not have him harmed. And she knows how to play. She knows how to play this game here. She's keeping him to possibly stand trial. I wonder. This is my big wonder was, what was her conversation? While he's in the sky cell with her sister. Is she just gonna?
Right.
Does she want to take him? Does she need men to take him back to Winterfell? What is it she's wanting to accomplish here? Does she want to kill him? I mean.
Oh, I think she wants him to confess. Is Catelyn's ultimate goal. But we get a little bit of that right when Catelyn is talking to Lysa, and Lysa's freaking out. She's like, "Why did you bring him here? Like, I don't want any part of this." So we get a little bit of that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I just wonder, like ultimately, you got to do something with him. Either how he has to stand trial, or you're just going to take him prisoner until what? You've just started a war, So, and now she's realizing she's with her crazy sister, who just basically young Robert had said, he wanted to see him fly, and she was about to let it happen. I mean, 2 guardsmen grab him and take him over, and except for Catelyn to intervene, he probably would have been tossed out, the moon door. So these people are not in a good headspace right now. So I don't know. Definitely probably regretting coming this way. So
absolutely, yeah. And so then we go back to the Sky Cell, right? And Tyrion has another conversation with Mord, which is pretty sweet. Where he's how would you like to be rich, right? Like,
yeah, and who wouldn't want to be? Yeah, exactly. And so and Mord is really, he seems like he's someone who has been tricked and teased before. They make that, kind of Tyrion even figures that out. And I think it's a real subtle thing, but Tyrion could probably connect with Mord in that way, and probably understands that he has to go be delicate here and assure him that this is no trick. But he could tell that he had been toyed with and messed with, probably by other guardsmen or different people there in the Vale. So, he's really finessing his pitch here in regards to gold and explaining Lannisters and that they took his purse.
Right, and he tells him that his brother Jaime has a suit of gold. Right, that's that's even though he doesn't really, but he's too stupid to realize the difference.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got to convince him, but at the same time, show earnesty in that he's going to follow through on his promise, and this is not just some trick, because he really does need him to deliver a message, to Lysa so that he can confess.
You're right. I love the part too where he says he's offering him gold, and he's like, and then he says, "You could even be a lord, Lord Mord," right?
Yeah,
it's just so funny. And in the show, Peter Dinklage does a great job. I mean, it's a great scene, of Tyrion as this. So,
right, yeah. And he's pushing his luck a little bit here, but he realizes that Mord is not going to push him. At one point, Mord gets out the leather strap and starts hitting him,
right? And
he does fall and is dangling almost at the edge there.
Right. Well, they also says earlier in the chapter, these cells, they're not flat rooms, like they're slanted just a little bit, right? So I guess my question is what would happen if it's funny. Tyrion says this later. He's like, "Is this how justice is done in the Vale?" Do you actually, how many people die? How many people who are innocent die just because of the way the Sky Cells are constructed
or set up?
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. To me, it makes me think they don't put somebody in the Sky Cell unless they really want them,
right,
to possibly take that leap or that, make that mistake. People they might want to silence, you know what I mean, and who they don't want to give a fair trial to, like Tyrion.
Right.
So
absolutely.
So
Tyrion gets Mord to take a message, right? And the message is that he wants to confess. Yeah.
Yep. And now, neat little bit here about writing, and how so illiterate people,
right.
and might be more receptive or see this as a guarantee if he puts it to paper. So he gets pen and paper and he writes down, and hands to Mord a promise, a note of promise that he will pay him, in gold. And he just says much gold. It doesn't really specify how much, but, so there's that. Thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see. So, yeah, he actually then is he goes to sleep while the message is taken away, and he is awoken by one of Lysa's guardsmen, and she's requested him. It's late. It's actually kind of like late evening, and so she wants him to come and confess. And she's got her whole retainer there. She's got all of her knights. Everyone is there to hear this confession, and that's what's awesome too is the cleverness of Tyrion, in that he knows people's natures. He understands how they think and what they might do. He's able to kind of predict that because he wanted all those people to be there. He didn't want it to be just him and Lysa. Oh,
absolutely, yeah.
He needs everyone to be there.
Right. Yeah. I love it. He says, he's like, and now to roll the dice. Right. He's thinking. He's like, where to begin, right, with this confession. He's like, I'm a vile little man. I confess it. My crimes and sins are beyond counting, my lords and ladies. I have lain with whores, not once, but hundreds of times. I have wished my own lord father dead, and my sister, our gracious queen, as well. It's like behind him some chuckle. I have not always treated my servants with kindness. I've gambled. I've cheated. I blush to admit. I have said many cruel and malice things about noble lords and ladies of the court. He gets a lot more in the show. He says like all kinds,
Right.
like he gets a lot more ridiculous things.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, then she's like, what do you imagine you're doing, dwarf? Liza says, he says he's confessing his crimes. Says, you are accused of sending a hired knife to slay my son Bran in his bed and conspiring to murder Lord Jon Arryn in the hand of the king. That's Catelyn. Those crimes I cannot confess, I fear. I know nothing of murders. Then Lady Liza says, I will not be made mock of. You had your little jape, and I hope you enjoyed it. Send him back. Ser Vardis, take him back to the dungeon. This time follow him a smaller cell with a floor more sharply sloped. Is this how justice is done in the Vale? Says, does honor stop at the bloody gate? You accuse me of crimes. I deny them, so you throw me into an open cell to freeze and starve. Where is the king's justice? And that's true.
Yeah.
Tyrion is still a high lord. He still has rights. It would be pretty dumb for Liza Arryn to kill him. Like, I don't know what her plan is here. Like, you are going to go to war with the Lannisters if you kill Tyrion. And
right.
and Robert is still alive, right? Like, Robert Baratheon's not going to take kindly to that either. So, like, I don't know where that would put everyone, but he says in the show, right? She says like, "Oh, we can have a trial," right? And so Tyrion, there's a little more back and forth there, but here he just says, "Fine, I demand a trial or a trial by combat," right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. It wants a trial by combat. And as you said, like you talked about how they, he wasn't going to get the fair trial.
Right.
With Lysa appointing her son. Yeah. So he has to have a trial by combat. So, real quick before we go on, I know because we're about to get into some really cool stuff. Sir Matt, did you notice that some of the other sigils that were there?
the winged chalice. Yep.
Okay, I didn't know if you. I wanted to bring it up because I thought, that's Arlen of Pennytree. That is his sigil. So the winged chalice, and I just kind of thought it was interesting. Now they say in the Vale that is House Hersey of Newkeep, a noble house. So that they also have a winged chalice, which is interesting. So he just notices that. So that's the one I think you notice. Arlen of Pennytree, I don't know if they're related in some way. Theirs is brown.
But Gur wrote this before he wrote that. So it's just interesting
I know, exactly.
that he must have hearkened back to,
Exactly. So because they've got, him in he's in like the Riverlands. Pennytree is from the Riverlands, but the winged chalice. So I just wonder if they're related in some way or some type of connection between.
Well, yeah, some houses which are like similar, or whatever, or offshoots or whatever, have kind of similar sigils and things like that too. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I just thought it was really cool. Cool little connection.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I noticed that right away. So Tyrion gets his trial, right? He's going to demand a trial by combat.
Well, and Lysa first is the one who starts naming, what's the word they use? Her champion.
Right, champion.
Starts naming a champion, and people are vying for it, and she eventually, I forget who she names. He's right here. Just gonna find it.
Vardis.
It is Ser Vardis Egan, and he doesn't want to do it. He realizes this is just not a very worthy thing to do.
Well, I don't know if he says that, right? In the show, it's interesting because she looks at him and he's like, Ser Vardis, you're awfully silent. And he steps out, but he looks like he just doesn't want a part of it. So I'm wondering and I don't know if we'll ever get this right in the books or anything, but it struck me as interesting in the show. Is he not doing it because he's like, well, if I kill Tyrion Lannister, like, am I gonna have to fight Jaime Lannister? Like, that's pretty dumb. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
that could be, and that as she's naming champions, it's actually, when he says this is just not, it's just shameful to slaughter such a man and call it justice, and Tyrion says, I agree. That's when he names his own champion, and that scares the daylights out of everyone else. And perhaps you're right. Maybe he did think that was, going to be a consequence of slaying this defenseless dwarf. I mean, really, it's, and also he seems like a man who does have some honor. It said that he was the captain of the guard in King's Landing for Jon Arryn. So this crazy wife of his, Lysa, he's still doing his duty, but I think at times to me, he's very stern. He has no humor, as according to Tyrion. But I take it as he just doesn't. This is not honorable. This is not an honorable thing. There's no justice to be found here, in this. So, too bad. And Tyrion sees an opportunity here.
Yeah, Tyrion sees an opportunity. She says, "Your precious Kingslayer is hundreds of leagues from here. Send a bird for him. I can wait." She says, "You will face Ser Vardis on the morrow," and then basically, I'll stand for the dwarf. Bronn calls out.
Right. Yeah, he makes her feel terrible, doesn't he? He makes her, not terrible, but just he kind of calls her out, like, you have your champion, but you denied me. He tells the singer, let everybody know that Lysa Arryn denied me the right to a champion, and and that's when Bronn stands up, and beforehand he had looked at Bronn, he had stared at him for a long time. He made eye contact with him and really connected.
Right, well, and he notices him when he walks in too. Like he sees who's in attendance, right? Much like Lord Eddard Stark notices Sir Beric Dondarrion, or when Catelyn Stark walks in and she notices, certain people in at the crossroads. So
I think that's one of the coolest things is when you go into a room and you take account and you start to kind of like compare and rank up these different folk and see who is from where and who is some of the better, challengers, swordsmen, all that kind of stuff. It's just really neat to me. I think one of the coolest things Gur does when a character enters a room and assesses the situation, So, but yeah, I mean, so Bronn is his man, and he's been building this relationship with Bronn for a long time. That's something Catelyn had foreseen. Actually, she didn't like it,
because they're like chuckling together, right? Right.
Yeah, he's playing to that sense of humor, and Bronn actually kind of finds something in it that he likes, and he's a sellsword, and this is Tyrion is one of the richest men in the Westeros, even though it's his family's money. It's still he is rich beyond, count. So, it's like, well, this guy, I could probably take, also he sees the chance, he gets a chance to see who it is he's facing. And Ser Vardis is not a slouch, but still Bronn is confident, isn't he? Very confident in his skill.
Right.
I think too, maybe he's fought a lot of different knights and he understands, we'll get into that later, but I mean, just different techniques.
Right. Yeah. Well, in the show, this is all one scene, right? So we can go ahead and talk a little bit about it. That's fine, I think. Because same thing. It happens pretty much the same way in the book, but Bronn realizes I'm not wearing big, thick, heavy armor. So.
No. Right.
Yep. So
just kind of neat. Both just the wit and the subtlety there, the things you wouldn't expect, and this is also. Even if you're just reading Game of Thrones and you haven't heard any of the rest of the series, this is a cool moment, where you're learning, wow, they can do trials by combat. You know what I mean? Like, that's something you can do. When you think about just the development of the book series, that would have been cool to me when I first, read it. That was cool because I tried to read on ahead after I'd watched the opening episode, to Game of Thrones. So,
yeah.
Anyways, really cool stuff. So.
Cool.
All right.
Well, we can go ahead on over to Send a Raven. I have one. This one's kind of less of a Game of Thrones story and kind of a follow-up to something I guess we talked about a little bit. I guess a couple weeks ago, Sir Ezra, I must have said something about snakes and how I don't like them. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what the context was, but anyway, lady Sydney hit me up on Instagram and sent me this. She said, "Hey, Sir Matt, so I was listening to a Fall Out Friday episode, and you were talking about how you could never live in Florida because of alligators and snakes, which is 100% accurate." So
Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought I'd share this short story with you. She says her grandparents live in Tampa, and right outside their backyard there is a little pond. One morning, her grandmother was sitting in her sunroom and heard this noise outside her door. Sure enough, it was an alligator, literally feet away from her, and she was terrified. So she had to call animal control to come and get it. And she said it happens all the time, but no, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm the same way. So
Yeah. Out on that.
So then she said, "P.S. I was in Chicago a few weeks ago, and in their aquarium has a 14-foot long anaconda." Which is pretty cool, but also terrifying.
What?
Yeah, out. Yeah,
In Chicago?
yeah.
Where that thing got out?
That's what happens in Harry Potter, man. That freaking snake gets out.
I know.
She said her
Yeah.
boyfriend's dad is also in the Navy, and he recently spent some time deployed in Africa. They had black mambas come into their tents during the day.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
She says she also dislikes spiders. Well, I don't trust spiders. I'll say that.
Yeah, I would honestly rather
Right.
go with a tarantula than I would any
Oh,
snake.
God,
Any snake.
yeah. So I thought I would share an interesting story I had with a snake once. I know you know about this, Sir Ezra, but
Yeah.
you remember our
Do I?
yeah, are you Tim? You remember Tim when
Yeah.
when I was living in Portland before? So
Yeah.
all right, I thought I would share a funny story here. So yeah, I used when I lived in Portland before, lived in like this big house, a bunch of people, so we could keep rent relatively low. And my buddy Tim had a snake, and he went on vacation, I think, to see his sister in California, and he was like, "Hey, can you feed my snake while I'm gone?" And so I just don't like snakes at all. I really don't like. I mean, I love like dogs and cats and stuff. Like I love dogs and cats, but like even big horses kind of freak me out. Like any animal that's large enough to kill me, I'm just like, ugh. Like draft horses. I'm like, what the is that thing? Right? It's like an elephant or something. Okay, like,
right? Yeah,
they're huge. Like
they're huge. Yeah,
the draft horses especially. But anyway, so I'm like, oh my god. Okay, he was like gone for like 2 weeks or something. So I was like, okay, so. He has like a bag in the freezer, right, that says like for his snake or whatever, and so he has like a cage, right, and it's like on like the floor, and so I go into his room. I've got this bag, and I'm assuming there's like a freaking mouse or something in it, which also like the idea of like a dead mouse, I'm like, I'm out, right?
Yeah,
like this frozen dead mouse. So his snake is in like a pretty tiny cage, right? It's just like a little aquarium cage, and it's got a light, like a heat lamp in it. And so I like open the top, and I have to like move the light, right? And so I don't want it like burning something, so I like set it, and it's like there's like this little stool there or whatever, and so I like set it so it's like facing up, so it's not gonna like burn the carpet, right, or anything, because it's super hot. And so I am trying to do this really fast because I don't want this freaking snake getting out or getting anywhere near me, and so I just like open the bag and just like dump it in and like not trying to look, and like a plastic bag with this mouse in it like drops in. I'm like, oh shit, like because I'm like I don't want a snake like eating this freaking plastic bag, right, and dying. So
serves it right.
Yeah,
I don't.
And so like his snake is also like, it's like coiled up, right? There's like this rock, and it's like like, that he can like crawl under or whatever. It's got like a little hole in it, so it's like a little dome. It's kind of like a dog house, I guess, type of thing for a snake.
Snake house,
right? Yeah, snake house. And so his snake, you feed a snake like once a month or something. So I don't know. So it's probably really freaking hungry, and I have to like stick my hand in here and like pull this plastic bag out, so like the snake doesn't eat the plastic bag and die. So I stick my hand in, pull the bag out, and the snake just like snaps all the way across from like under the rock, like out. Dude, oh my god, it was like terrifying. And then like the cage door is still freaking open, so I step back, like, oh crap, like knock the lamp over, and like it's like, like actually burns. I like, dude, it's so ridiculous. It like burns a little hole into the carpet. It's like, it like lands on the carpet. So like I almost started a freaking fire. So then anyway, so like luckily I was able to shut the thing, put the lamp back on the cage. And so I was just like, I'm just coming back in like hours. Right. Like, wow. I'm just like, yep, nope, not doing this. So I just like came back in like a couple of hours and like opened, like dropped it in there, didn't even look, and same thing. I just heard this like snap all the way across because the snake just like uncoiled, like, bam, like, oh God.
Like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Wait,
so
did you eat the bag or did you get the bag out?
No, I get the bag out. So I reached and pulled the bag, the plastic bag, which the mouse was in. It was like a Ziploc, right? And so I just like
you just dropped
Jesus. Well, it was in this paper bag, right? And so I just assume that the mouse is in there, right? And so it's just I just drop it out. I didn't realize it was also in a plastic bag inside of there. Right. I guess freezer burn or whatever. Jesus, I don't know. It was terrifying. And I never want to do anything with snakes ever again. So, but,
wow, dude, was it poisonous or you know what type of?
Oh no, I don't think you can. Well, I don't know if you can own poisonous snakes. I mean, it's like it had it actually bit me or something. I don't think I would have had to go to the hospital or anything. It's like it's a pet snake. I mean, it's not. I don't know.
I mean, I
don't know. I don't trust it though. But yeah, so I almost
might have found it out in the wild.
I almost caught the house on fire. Like, almost got bit by a snake. It's like emotionally scarred for the rest of my life. So yeah.
Wow, dude. I'm just thinking of your new sigil. I'm thinking of ways we can incorporate this story into a sigil.
I'm good. I don't need a snake sigil ever. So.
Oh man, that's funny.
Hey, but I know some people like pet snakes and stuff like that, and that's cool. That's not me. Nope. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. Wow. So that is my steak story. I thought I would share because Lady Sydney had brought it up. So
awesome. All right. Well, I have just a quick little challenge based on this week's reading. I thought, maybe Lord Hunter could help me with this. I would like in the group for someone to start a thread titled "Confess Your Crimes." I just thought we might as well get it out there and be open and honest with each other and just confess. So I'm sure Lord Hunter can start us off. So. Maybe we'll get in there and confess ours, I mean, that's Matt already kind of confessed. And by crime, I mean, please don't go in there and confess to some, cold case situation.
Yeah, Sir Ezra. Yeah, Sir Ezra is a mandatory reporter. So you got to.
Yeah, I got to report stuff. It's funny.
Yeah.
But no, I just thought it went along with this chapter. So, all right. Well, yeah, send those ravens to btkcast@gmail.com. And we are gearing up for Raven's Nest. And looking forward to having some good time there. Shout out to
Fire and Blood. We have the Patreon Black Council episode. I don't know, it's like 6 or something at this point, but it will be the Sworn Sword, which is part 2, the second book in the Dunk and Egg series. That is coming soon. We're working on it right now. So,
right, exactly, yeah. So definitely a lot coming, and we're excited. In our bannerman, we've got just quick shout out, Lady Amanda, Lord Hunter, and Lord Jason Ross, so we've got some folks in there who are going to hopefully be able to participate in our Raven's Nest. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, and you can comment live, you can listen live, and you can chat with us. You can actually jump into the audio in that Bannerman tier. And then there's also the Sworn Sword tier where you can comment live. But the Night's Watch tier, everyone in there can listen live. So should be some fun. So. All right, I think that is it. So if you want to check out those tiers, those are at patreon.com/bend the knee. Yeah, one last thing we want to remember. I said at the beginning of the show, trivia for next week is a little different. I already posted a thing in the Facebook group. Just go ahead, jump right into that Facebook group, leave a comment. Doesn't matter if you're first or last. We're just going to draw a name out of a hat, and you will win a copy of Fire and Blood. So stay tuned for all of that. So, all right, guys, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 39, Eddard 10.
Wow, dude, you took my part. I mean, I was going to say that part.
Yeah, we were switching. Yeah.
I'll just kidding. If If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is coming.